Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be going over some parts of the Peepzilla pattern. We'll be going over how to attach the ears together and continue on the head, which is round 13 of the pattern, as well as how to embroider the two different types of eyes that are in the pattern. And I'll be showing you how I like to attach new strands of yarn in my rounds, because this Peepzilla pattern does take so much yarn. It takes about 4 balls of the Premier Parfait extra large palm party that we're using here. So I'll be showing you how I like to pull those new strands through to continue our rounds in a seamless way. I'll go ahead and link the principal pattern, which you will need to make this Peepzilla. So I'll go ahead and link that in this video in the description below so that you can access it here. And we're going to start on round 13. So let's get started. Okay, so at this point we finished round 12 of the Peepzilla pattern. We finished round 12 on both sets of ears, so we've made 2 ears. The first one we've gone ahead and fastened off. The second one is still attached to our ball. Okay, and we are on round 13 of the Peepzilla, which is starting on the head. Round 13 is going to be a pattern of single crochet invisible decreases around both sets of ears. So first I'm going to show you how to attach those ears, and then we'll work through those stitches. Okay, so this is our last stitch from round 12 of the ear with the yarn still attached to the ball. And we're going to face that last stitch that we worked towards us. On the ear that we fastened off, we are going to take that last stitch that was worked here and face it inwards with the tail hanging down. And we're going to begin working in the first stitch in the round. So if you see here, this is where you fastened off, and this is your next stitch here. So this is the stitch we're going to be working into. The best way to do this is to get your yarn ready. So the yarn that's still attached to the ball, we'll go ahead and hold on to that kind of towards the back, grab our ear, and in the front we'll insert our hook through that first stitch, pull our yarn through that stitch, yarn over, and pull through both of those stitches again. And that gives you a clean way to attach those 2 ears together. Okay, and then we're just going to be working around this ear for round 13. So like I said, round 13 is a pattern of single crochet and then invisible decreases. So we've done our single crochet in attaching that ear. The next step will be working an invisible decrease. Okay, and then we'll just be repeating that pattern around the ear. So the next stitch will be a single crochet and then an invisible decrease. Okay, and our last set here. So we've got 3 more stitches left on this ear. We'll do our single crochet and then our invisible decrease. There we go. Okay, and now we've made it back around to our second ear. Okay, so again, that's the yarn tail from our first ear. We're just letting that hang down in the middle. We'll be using that to sew the hole closed that is in between these ears at the end. So we'll leave that hanging down in the middle. We're just going to go ahead and go into the first stitch of that second ear and work a single crochet. So where our stitch marker was, that first stitch that we would have continued on the second ear, we'll go ahead and insert our hook, pull up a loop, and work a single crochet. Remove our stitch marker, and our next stitch, again, we're just repeating that pattern around. So our next stitch is going to be an invisible decrease, And we're doing the same thing around this ear. So we're working a single crochet, invisible decrease pattern all the way around this ear. So next stitch is a single crochet and then an invisible decrease. And we'll keep going until this ear is complete. Okay, so if you look here, we have 3 more stitches, 1, 2, 3 left on this ear. This is our last stitch here, so we'll go ahead and work our last single crochet. And our last invisible decrease. Okay, so that's it for round 13. We have both the ears connected. Again, we have this tail end is going to sew that hole closed in between the ears, if you could see it there, when we're completely done. So we'll go ahead and continue on to round 14 and start building the head. Now what we're going to start, as we work down this head, I've started working down my head and my body part ways. We want to start stuffing our ears as we work down this and our head. Now I do recommend stitching your ears, the hole in between your ears closed together before you stuff your ears. As you start, you can wait till the end to go ahead and stitch that closed. It just gets a little bit harder as you stuff it to pull them apart and stitch that closed. It gets a little bit tighter in there. So I recommend stopping in the middle before you finish stuffing the ears and stitching that closed. So we'll go ahead and take our tail from our first ear. This is our tail from that we had hang down in between the ears from the first ear, and we're just going to stitch this hole closed. So I've already kind of started stitching it closed, but I wanted to show you guys how I did that. With your needle, you're going to go into the stitches on either side of the ear from the front to the back of the stitch and pull it through. And then you'll just go to the other side of the ear and do the same thing in that stitch from front to back. We're going to pull our needle through and pull our thread through and pull it tight. And we'll just do that across each stitch until the hole is closed. You'll kind of have a little bit of a small opening here at the very end. Go ahead and do one last whip stitch across those two, just to make sure it's nice and closed. Make sure it's nice and tight. You can do into that stitch right below. You can go across it and just do, going back through the loop, a small knot in between those ears just to make sure that yarn stays nice and tight, and then inserting it down through your head and hiding that strand of yarn. Okay, and then of course start stuffing your ears. Stuff them pretty full. You want it nice and squishy, so go ahead and stuff those as full as you'd like, and the head, and then we'll just continue working down the body, and I'll show you guys next how to stitch the hole closed that it forms at the bottom through those last 10 stitches. Okay, so here he is. We've got our ears, we've worked through our head and our body. We have our Peep stuffed to our liking. I have them stuffed pretty full. And we just need to sew the hole closed at the bottom. Okay, so this is the only sewing part really in the pattern. It's between the ears and the hole closed at the bottom. I'm gonna do my best to show you guys how to sew this closed here. He's pretty big, so I'm trying to get him into the camera view as best as possible. But what you're gonna be doing is with your yarn needle and that tail end, you're just gonna be going from back to front through all 10 stitches around. Okay, I do recommend as you go through each stitch to kind of give it a good tug and pull it tight. If you wait until the very end to pull the stitches or the yarn tight, like you can with acrylic or cotton yarn, this yarn tends to snap. So I don't recommend waiting until the end. Just go ahead and give it a good pull as you continue around. And we're just going through each stitch around. If you can see that, from the back to the front, and pull. Okay, do the next one from the back to the front, pull it, and we'll just keep working around. I have a little bit of yarn that, or a little bit of fluff that comes through. Just go ahead and get that back in, out of the way. You might have to go through your stitches 2 times to get this one closed. Just being that it's a little bit bigger. Okay, so we've gone through it once, and we'll just keep working our way around. As you work around in this one, you'll want to kind of skip. So you see you have a stitch here, if you can see that. So you'll want to go in through this one here. And it's almost like a decrease as you're working around. So you'll pull that tight and you'll see how that tightens your hole. So your next stitch is here. So we're going to go in through this one. So from back to front, through this stitch here. And give that a good pull. And then again, skipping this stitch here and going in through this one. Clean up that fluff. And then skipping this stitch here and going in through this one. This should be our last one here. There we go, and pull it tight. Okay, and for our yarn end, we can go ahead and just hide our end inside of our body. Pull up through and fasten off, and that will hold. Okay, and we'll go ahead and fasten off. There we go, clean them up. All right, and it is closed. So we have our almost finished Peep. We still have to do eyes. So next I'll be showing you guys how to embroider both sets of eyes, the closed eyes as well as the open embroidered eyes. Okay, so we have 2 different types of eyes that we can choose from to embroider. On this pattern, we have the open Peep eye, which is on this yellow Peep, and the closed Peep eye, which is on this blue Peep. I'm going to show you how to make both, and you can choose which one you'd like to do on yours. Okay, so on the blue Peep, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to embroider the closed eye. For these Peeps, if you have a long needle like this, it is super helpful. Mine's a little too sharp, so I'm going to do my best with it, but the longer needles are really helpful for doing the eyes on these Peeps. If you have a shorter needle, you might just have to come up in more places and just reinsert your hook to get it to the spot you need. But the way I do this is I just insert through the side. We're going to be going in through row 19. Or coming up through row 19 to start the eyes. So if you count here, this indented one is row 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 19 is right here, this row. So this is where our eye is going to start. And our first eye is going to start on the inside of our ear. So if you kind of go down right there, you can gauge it. Our second eye is going to be 3 stitches apart. So this is kind of your middle point here. So you can kind of find the best spot by gauging the inside of your ears and 3 stitches apart. Okay, so we'll go ahead and come up through this stitch here to start our ear. And you really want to make sure you're in the stitch. Okay, we'll pull our needle up. If you catch some of the fuzz, just pull it out. You want to leave a good amount of yarn coming through so we can do both eyes with it. And then we're going to go to the right 4 stitches. So we're here, 1, 2, 3. 4 is where we're going to insert back down through. So this stitch here, 4 stitches away to the right. And we're going to come back up from where we started, 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over. So this is row 18, so we're going 1 up, 1 over from where we initially brought our yarn out. And we'll bring our hook back up through there. You want it on the inside of the eye, so your yarn should be looped up over the top of your hook, or I'm sorry, the top of your needle, and we'll bring it up. Okay, and that creates the arch for our eye. And then we're going to go ahead and reinsert our hook. This is where we pulled our yarn up, 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over. Okay, so that'll be row 17 and 1 stitch over. And then we're going to come, our needle is going to come back up, 1 stitch down from that back to row 18. So if you can see there, we're 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over from where we pulled our yarn up, and we're bringing our needle back up in row 18 directly down. Okay, and again, you want on the inside of that eye. Okay, so we'll bring it back down and through, and that should create our first eyelash. Okay, for the next one, we're going to do the same thing. So 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over is where our needle is going to go in, and we're going to be bringing it back up one row down. So back down to row 18. Okay, and again, that's going to be on the inside of the eye. So we'll go ahead and pull our yarn through that one. And that'll create our second eyelash. You want to kind of give it a firm tug, but not too tight. You don't want to hide your yarn inside of the other. So you don't want to pull it too tight, just tight enough to where it keeps that arch for the eye. Next one is same thing, 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over. But this one, we're going to come back up through the start. So we've gone from where we brought our yarn out, we've gone 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over to put our needle back down, but we're bringing our needle back up where we ended our eye arch. So right here into row 19 again. Okay. And that creates our second eyelash, or our third eyelash. And then this one, we're going 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over. So this is our last one that we're doing for this eye. So we've brought it up right here at the end of our eye. We're going 1 up, 1 over here. Okay. Where we come back out is again towards our second eye. So we're doing 1, 2, 3 stitches over. So we're going to come back out 3 stitches over from the first, if I can get it here. There we go. And you might have to go back and kind of, I had to pull that one a little bit tight, so we might have to go back and kind of pull that out a little bit, make sure it's not too tight in there. Just give it a slight adjustment. There we go. Okay. And now we're going to move on to our second eye. So this time we're just doing the same thing, but to the left. Okay, so we're going 4 stitches over. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And we're coming back up 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over. So again, 1 stitch up right there and 1 stitch over from where you started. Let me see if I can get that in there. There we go. And we want to come up on the inside to make that arch. Go ahead and pull our yarn through for that second eye. And we're doing the same thing. So we've brought our yarn up right here. We're going 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over. and then back out 1 row down, back into row 18. So we've gone 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over, and then back down through this row on the inside of the eye. And that'll create our first eyelash on this eye. Okay. Make sure you pull everything tight enough, snug enough, I should say, to where it creates a clean arch there. Okay. There we go. And then we're going the same thing. So 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over, and back directly down through the next stitch. All right, so we've gone, try that one more time. We've gone 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over, there it is, and back down through this stitch here. Okay, we'll kind of compare the two, make sure everything's looking good. And we're doing the same thing, so 1 stitch up, 1 stitch over, and then back up through the end of that eye. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. We're right here. We're going 1 stitch up and 1 stitch over, and then back up where the eye ends. Okay, and then for this one again, we're going 1 stitch up, if you could see it there, and 1 stitch over, and that'll be our last one. So when we pull this one through, we'll go back out through, if we can find it, where we inserted our initial yarn. Okay, we'll pull that one snug and make sure everything is lined up perfectly. So you might have to kind of do some adjustments pulling your yarn out. Make sure it didn't fall inside the head too much. Okay, we'll go ahead and tie off this yarn and hide it inside the body, and there we go. That is the closed eyes for our Peep. Okay, to embroider the eyes on your Peep, we are going to be inserting our eyes through row 20. So if we count down, we have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So it's going to be in this row here. They're going to be about 6 stitches apart, and you're going to want to position them in the middle of the ear. So if we kind of go from the middle of the ear down to your row 20, you can place a marker there just to see and count over 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Check your positioning, make sure you like it. If you like your positioning, we can go ahead and take our yarn needle and insert through this side, come up through that first marked stitch, take out your marker. You want to pull up enough yarn to embroider both eyes, and we're going to be using about 5 to 6 stitches in both eyes, so pull up quite a bit of yarn. We're going to go up 2 rows to make our eyes. So you've pulled your yarn up here in row 20, we're going to go up 1, 2 to row 18 and bring our yarn back down. Okay, and that makes the first stitch on your eye. And you'll want to pull it just a little bit snug, but not too tight. Every time you go through these eyes, you're going to be switching sides on what side the yarn is. So I'll show you kind of how to do that. So we'll insert our yarn again with our yarn on this side and pull our needle down. And go ahead and tighten that. And that's going to put that yarn kind of on this side. We'll go ahead and give it a good tug. The next time we do it, we'll be positioning the yarn on the other side. So we'll pull it over this way and pull it down. And that'll kind of give it that round look. Again, pull it over to the other side now. Yarn down and pull it. Okay, Okay, so we've done about 4 stitches now, so we'll go ahead and do 2 more. So we'll, with our yarn on this side now, we'll go ahead and insert our needle, pull through, and one more time. When we go through this time, it's our last time, so we're going to go ahead and put our yarn needle back up where we're placing that other eye. So where that other marker is at, we're going to go ahead and see if we can find that hole there. If your needle is not long enough to reach all the way, go ahead and just come up in the middle. Make sure you complete the eye on this side, nice and clean. Back down through that hole and up where you need to be, and that'll get it all the way across. Some of your fuzz might pop up like that. We can just go ahead and put our needle back through it and stuff it down there. There we go. Stuff it back in there. Okay, and just keep pulling your yarn through to that, make that second eye. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So we're going up 1, 2 stitches and down through that same hole. And we'll just keep switching sides like we did before to make our eye circular. Pulling it snug each time. And you will have some yarn that, or some fuzz that comes through. We can always clean that up after. It's going to happen. Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's our last stitch to embroider the eyes. If you want to do the cute little eyebrows on the side, how we're going to do that is we ended coming up through this hole. We need to go back over to our other eye. So we'll go ahead, insert our hook through that same stitch, back up to the top of the first eye. And then we're just going over 1 and down. Okay, so from this stitch here, we'll go over 1, actually 2, 1, 2, and down 1. Okay, then you can come up anywhere in the middle. Make sure it's pulled to your liking. Back down again, back over to your the top of your other eye. And then over 1, 2, and down 1 stitch. And pull through. Okay, and that is it for your eye. So we'll go ahead and push our yarn back over to our starting spot, tie it off, and hide the yarn inside of the body. And we can clean up any fuzz that came out. And there you go. There is the embroidered eyes for the Peep. I hope this video guide was helpful in making your Peepzilla pattern. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy crocheting, everyone.